Hey guys, my name is Shakarez and today I'm bringing you an informative video on League of Legends Season 3. And today we'll be talking about Black Cleaver versus Last Whisper. Now let's get started. So Black Cleaver had a pretty strong initial stats with the beginning of pre-season 3 with 250 health, 50 attack damage, 10% cooldown reduction, 10 armor penetration, this was flat amount, and then up to 30% armor reduction with 4 stacks. So this was a really strong item, and basically you'd see every AD caster stack these and take multiple Black Cleavers. So this meant, assuming you'd get 4 hits off, Black Cleaver would always be a better item than Last Whisper unless your target had 326 armor or more. Now, really no target has 326 armor or more, unless you'd have a Rammus building a full armor build with his defensive ball curl on. So the old Black Cleaver completely outperformed and outclassed Last Whisper to a point that it wasn't used. Now with its new stats, basically the 10 armor flat armor penetration is now unique. So stacking multiple Black Cleavers won't give you more flat armor pen. And now the percentage armor pen will only go up to 25% instead of 30%. Now this might not seem a lot, but it definitely put Last Whisper back into the game. Now let's take a look at the advantages of Black Cleaver. So it gives health, it gives cooldown reduction, it gives flat penetration, and it gives 50 attack damage, which is 10 more than Last Whisper. Now looking at the disadvantages, the Black Cleaver's 25% armor reduction is an instant. You need to hit 4 times to get this value. Now this will only compensate if you either have high values of attack speed or a skill that can proc Black Cleaver fast enough, like Gyron's Whirlwind. As for Last Whisper's advantages, it's cheaper than Black Cleaver, 2,135 gold instead of 3,000, and the 35% armor penetration is instant. We don't need to stack it up like you would have to do with Black Cleaver. Now, disadvantages are pretty obvious. It doesn't give health, it doesn't give CDR, it doesn't give flat penetration. So now you may ask yourselves, when is one of the items better than the other? And here we're only talking penetration-wise, we're not including costs, that will be after. So I ran 2 tests, with and without the Weapon Expertise Mastery, that gives 8% armor penetration. So let's take a look. Without Weapon Expertise, when target armor has less than 37 armor, BC is always better. If target has between 37 and 48 armor, BC will outdamage Last Whisper from the second hit onwards. If the target has more than 48 armor but less than 61, BC will outdamage from the third hit onward. If the target has between 61 and 100 armor, BC will outdamage Last Whisper from the 4th hit onwards. Now there's a gap here between 100 and 118 armor, where BC with 4 stacks actually equals more or less the armor penetration from Last Whisper. So you'll actually get 1 more or 1 less damage. It all has to do with the Riot rounding up the numbers, so there really isn't a difference between 100 and 118. Now with more than 118 armor, Last Whisper will actually be always better than Black Cleaver, because it will lower the penetration further. Now if you take Weapon Expertise, you'll notice that Last Whisper becomes more effective earlier. So instead of becoming always better than Black Cleaver after 118 armor, it becomes better from 108 armor onwards. Please take note that I'm only covering the basic and general situations. If you have a champion like Xin Zhao or Kayle that have 15% armor penetration and reduction respectively built into them, you'll see that Last Whisper will become even more effective earlier. Now what about cost effectiveness? Because Black Cleaver gives extra stats that Last Whisper doesn't have, like the health, the cooldown reduction, and the flat penetration. Now let's take a look at Kindle Gem. Kindle Gem costs 150 gold, gives 200 health, which is 50 less than Black Cleaver, and gives the same amount of cooldown reduction, 10%. Now if we subtract the 850 gold from the Black Cleaver, we'll get an imaginary Black Cleaver that gives 50 attack damage, 10 flat armor pen, 50 health, and up to 25 armor reduction if it has the 4 stacks. Now when compared to Last Whisper, you'll notice that for less 15 gold, Last Whisper gives less 10 attack damage. It does give more 10% armor pen, but it does not give the 10 flat armor penetration that Black Cleaver does. So to wrap it up, we can conclude that Black Cleaver is a more cost-effective item than Last Whisper, but not necessarily better. Now, let's look at the situations where you should take one or you should take the other. Just a small reminder before we start though, armor reduction and armor penetration are not the same thing. Whilst armor penetration will ignore a percentage of the target's armor, they'll still have that same armor in the tooltip. So let's say the target has 90 armor, you attack them, you actually ignore 35% of those 90 armor. But if another target from your team attacks them and doesn't have any type of penetration whatsoever, he'll attack and the target will still have 90 armor. On the other hand, armor reduction actually affects the armor of the enemy champion. So you'll notice in this clip that when I'm attacking, Heimerdinger's armor is actually going down. This means that if another target attacks him, provided obviously that the stacks are there, he'll actually be treated as if he only had the armor after the reduction of Black Cleaver. So Black Cleaver is a much better item if you have more than one 80 type champion, because all the other players from your team will actually benefit from the armor reduction. Now let's take a look at some case scenarios. Here you're the 80 caster, and by 80 caster I mean Talon, Jarvan, Zed, Garen, Wukong, whatever. Normally, an 80 caster will be able to apply the 4 stacks of Black Cleaver pretty fast, especially if he has AoE skills. So if you're the 80 caster, you want to be building this, and you want to destroy the enemy carry's armor as fast as possible. Now by doing so, by reducing key target's armor to lower values, you can make the 80 carry's job much easier, and you'll see that your 80 carry kills the key targets much faster. Now I'll discuss another situation for 80 carries, and here I'll go more in depth. We have 2 different scenarios inside this 80 carry category. You either have an 80 caster or you don't. If you have an 80 caster on your team, the situation is pretty simple. You should always go for Last Whisper. Why? Well, it's pretty simple. Stacking Black Cleavers doesn't make that much sense, and having 2 Black Cleavers on your team just makes your stacks go up faster. But normally an 80 caster will already do this fast enough for you. So you should be taking a Last Whisper, and then you'll ignore 35% of the target's armor after it has been reduced by Black Cleaver, and this way it won't stack exponentially, and in general it will allow you to deal even more damage. Now if you don't have an 80 caster on your team, the situation is a bit different, and here I think it's up to personal preference, because some 80 carries can actually proc the Black Cleaver fast enough, others cannot, so it really depends on preference and how fast you can stack Black Cleaver. Generally, most 80 carry players will tell you they prefer Last Whisper. Why? Well, first, because it's an item that you build late game, so Last Whisper makes more sense, and because the penetration is instant, and sometimes you won't get the chance to put 4 auto attacks on a target before killing them. Also, you should look at the enemy's armor and assess if Black Cleaver is going to be much better or not that much of a difference. Building a Last Whisper also gives you another advantage, which is if your enemy actually builds more armor, you'll be prepared for it and you'll have the better item penetration-wise. So that has been all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and a comment saying what you think, and I'll talk to you guys later.